What would you do differently tomorrow morning if you knew that no matter what happened at work, you could survive for the next 6 months without a single paycheck? That question, really sitting with it, is the beginning of understanding why $10,000 is not just a number. It is a threshold, a before and after line drawn across your life that most people never cross, and those who do rarely talk about what happens on the other side. Because what happens isn't just financial. It's psychological. It's behavioral. It's relational. It's the quiet, unannounced rewiring of how you see yourself and every decision you make from that point forward. This is what changes. You stop making decisions from fear. Before $10,000, almost every major decision in your life is made under a kind of low-grade financial duress. You stay in the job that's slowly killing your spirit because the rent is due in 11 days. You don't negotiate your salary because you can't afford the gap between jobs if they rescind the offer. You say yes to projects you hate and no to opportunities that require risk. You are not making free choices. You are making survival choices dressed up as free choices. The moment $10,000 is sitting in an account you don't touch, something shifts. You walk into work differently. Not arrogantly, just differently. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, you know you have options. That knowledge alone changes your posture, your tone, and the quality of your thinking. Psychologists call this the cognitive bandwidth effect. Financial stress consumes mental resources the same way apps running in the background drain a phone battery. You don't realize how much of your brain power was running anxiety calculations until you no longer have to. $10,000 doesn't make you rich, but it gives your brain room to breathe. And a brain that can breathe thinks longer, clearer, and more creatively than one that is perpetually in survival mode. Your relationship with work transforms. There is a version of you that works because you have to. Then there is a version of you that works because you choose to. They look identical from the outside. On the inside, they are completely different people. When you have a financial cushion, work becomes something you evaluate rather than something that just happens to you. You start asking questions you never dared to ask before. Is this career actually what I want, or is it just what I fell into? Am I being compensated fairly, or have I just normalized being underpaid? Is this company's culture something I choose, or something I've simply gotten used to tolerating? These questions aren't luxuries. They are the natural output of a mind that is no longer operating in scarcity. And once you start asking them, you start making moves, asking for raises with confidence, setting boundaries around your time, pursuing side projects that used to feel too risky. People with a financial cushion don't just perform better at work. They perform differently. They take creative risks. They push back. They walk away from bad deals. All of that changes the trajectory of a career in ways that compound quietly but dramatically over time. Your tolerance for bad situations drops, and that's a good thing. One of the most underrated effects of saving $10,000 is that it raises your floor. The baseline conditions you are willing to accept in your life quietly shift upward. You become less willing to stay in a toxic relationship because financial dependency no longer holds you hostage. You become less willing to live in a neighborhood that makes you unhappy because moving no longer feels financially impossible. You become less willing to eat badly, sleep poorly, and skip the doctor because you have a little room to invest in your own maintenance. This might sound uncomfortable, and in the short term, it sometimes is. Savings can force clarity. When money is no longer the reason you're staying in a situation, you have to confront whether you actually want to be there. Some people discover, with their first real cushion, that they've been tolerating far more than they ever consciously acknowledged. That realization is sometimes painful, but it is always useful. Emergencies stop being catastrophes. Before $10,000, an unexpected $800 car repair isn't just an inconvenience, it is a crisis. It is a cascade. It is the domino that tips rent, which tips credit, which tips everything. Living without a financial buffer means living in a world where anything can go wrong at any time, and when it does, it goes very wrong very fast. That ambient threat hums in the background of every day, whether you consciously register it or not. After $10,000, the car breaks down and it is annoying. You pay for it, you're frustrated, and you go about rebuilding the cushion. The emergency happened. The catastrophe didn't. The psychological difference between those two outcomes is enormous, and it compounds over years into a fundamentally different relationship with risk, uncertainty, and the future. People who rarely experience financial catastrophes start to believe, at a bone-deep level, that they can handle what comes. That belief becomes a self-fulfilling architecture for how they move through the world. Your relationship with money itself changes. Before you've saved $10,000, money is mostly something that leaves. It comes in, and then it disappears, to bills, to expenses, to the thousand small emergencies that ambush a life lived without margin. Saving feels theoretical, even virtuous, but ultimately futile, because the balance never seems to hold. Once you break through and the balance holds, something clicks. You start to see money not as something that flows through you, but as something you can actually direct. The relationship shifts from passive to active. You start to think in longer time horizons. You begin asking not just, can I afford this, but, is this the best use of this resource? That is a fundamentally different kind of financial thinking, and it's the foundation that all real wealth building is built on. The first $10,000 doesn't just teach you that saving is possible. It teaches you how money behaves when you treat it with intention. And that lesson, more than the dollar amount itself, is what tends to take people further. You start believing in a different version of yourself. Perhaps the least discussed and most powerful change is this: saving $10,000 is proof. It is evidence, hard, numbered, sitting in an account evidence, that you can do what you said you were going to do. For a lot of people, that is genuinely new. They've told themselves they would save. They've started and stopped. They've watched the balance tick up and then collapse back to zero. And then one day it doesn't collapse. It holds. It grows past $7,000, past $9,000, and then, quietly, without ceremony, it hits 5 figures. That moment changes the story you tell about yourself. You are no longer someone who wants to be financially responsible. You are someone who is. And identity, once it shifts, changes everything downstream. Your habits, your choices, your ambitions, the people you surround yourself with, and the goals you're willing to say out loud. $10,000 is not a destination. It is a door. What matters most is not what's in the account. It's who you become in the process of putting it there, and what you're willing to believe is possible once you walk through. The math is simple. The journey rarely is. But on the other side of it, almost nothing looks the same.